Have you thought about this? What do you think the military thinks about a military strike on Syria? They're the ones that will have to do it if President Obama orders it. Now brace yourself. According to a new Military Times survey, U.S. service members oppose strikes on Syria by a 3-to-1 margin. Major General Bob Scales joins us. Good evening, sir.
Hi, Greta.
Before I ask you about the military, I'm curious what your thought is on President Putin with this op-ed posted in the New York Times for the American people to read.
Wow. I mean, this is just amazing. I mean, he's saying that the resistance gassed themselves. Hey, Greta, and where did the Syrians get 1,000 tons of chemicals? I think they got them from Russia, if I'm not mistaken. And his point about foreigners delivering weapons to Syria, well, they are. They're delivering truckloads of rifles to the resistance, and the Russians are delivering shiploads of tanks, aircraft, fighter jets. And he talks about the U.S. failure in Afghanistan. Excuse me? Does anybody remember the Russians spent 10 years in Afghanistan? You and I both have been there, and you see the countryside littered with Russian tanks. And the last point that really sort of torqued me off was this idea of criticizing American exceptionalism. Well, the Russians have their own form of exceptionalism, and they get it by crushing dissent and killing journalists and invading Georgia. I mean, I've seen chutzpah before, but I've never seen anything like this.
And, of course, the one single naval base that Russia has outside Russia just happens to be Tartus in Syria. Their one footprint in the Middle East in terms of a base. You forgot that one. But anyway, let me ask you this about 3-to-1, the Military Times poll, military personnel opposed to a military strike.
Yeah, and I mentioned this last night on Fox, and it's roughly in proportion to the opposition of the American people. It's about 80 against and 24, and that generally reflects the population. Of course, the military understand operations. They've been to Iraq and Afghanistan, many of them 12 or 13 times, and they understand that wars are fought for strategic ends, not just for emotionalism. And so I think that's where that ratio comes from, and I think it's pretty accurate, Greta.
Do you consider boots on the ground if we send military to Jordan, to that border, to begin helping and training rebels? Is that boots on the ground or not?
No, it's not, Greta. Look, you know, what do we send? We send 40 trained CIA rebels from Jordan into Syria every week. We should be sending 1,000 a week. We should have a supply line in Jordan going into Syria.
Is that boots on the ground? Is that boots on the ground? No, it's not.
No, you're in sovereign territory, Jordanian sovereign territory. You're not in Syria, and so from an international law perspective, it is not boots on the ground.
Is that us getting deep into a civil war that somebody opposed if we're sitting there on the border, you know, handing out the supplies?
You know, at this stage, Greta, it's the best we can do. The only alternative is to send 100 cruise missiles against Syria. We know that's not going to work. Assad has the advantage right now. Frankly, Greta, he can win without using chemical weapons at this stage. And so the best we can do is to turn this ragtag rabble of the Free Syrian Army into real soldiers. Look, we did it in Kosovo in 2.5 years. Why can't we do it in Jordan?
Well, we'll be watching, see what happens. Of course, Secretary Kerry will be meeting with Foreign Minister Lavrov very soon. And, of course, the Americans are going to wake up to that op-ed by President Putin. So there's a lot developing right now and through the night. General, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Greta.